where I was looking at things and I kept on going, oh, there's an issue, there's a problem. And going into that cycle of doom and gloom, going, oh, there's always an issue, there's always a problem. And then I just started thinking about consciously going, the issue was actually, what will people think about this? Is that, will they go, oh, he's being big-headed, look at him writing a book, or will they go, I don't want to listen to him? And yeah, I could really spiral into that of going, lower the self-worth, going, oh, I'm just going to wallow and go, I'm not worth it. And a really simple example, you're waiting for a bus, you're at the bus stop waiting for a bus, and it hasn't turned up. Straight away, you'll have an element of frustration, maybe anger. It hasn't turned up on time, that's impacting your day. But the issue isn't necessarily the bus being late, that's a trigger. The issue is the frustration, anger that's building up inside.
Hello, it's your leadership coach, Estelle Read, and host of Optimising Leader Brilliance, the place for calm, confident, and strategic leadership. Stay tuned to the end for a mini coaching and reflective practice. Find out more about my services by heading over to estelleread.com. So welcome everyone. Today we're joined by a gentleman who spent over a decade shaping the future of leadership at Network Rail. As a leadership and personal development manager, he has spearheaded massive programs like the Strategic Leadership and Accelerated Leaders initiatives, proving his expertise in navigating complex, high-stakes environments. But he is also an author who believes that while life doesn't always give you the perfect moments, it always gives you the choice. His book, The Flip, Turning Issue into Opportunity, teaches us how to pause, find clarity in chaos, and turn setbacks into momentum. Welcome everyone. I've got Steve Pendleton with me today, and I'm really interested to hear about his new book. He's the author of The Flip, Turning Issue into Opportunity. And I was saying just a few moments ago that I feel like we've got a lot in common. And when I was looking at the description of your book, I could make connections with the kinds of things I've written about as well. So I'm really looking forward to your perspective on it. But just so that listeners can get a sense of who you are, what does your typical day look like from start to finish? And have you got any non-negotiable routines?
Yes, so my typical day varies. You probably hear that a million times, that everyone's got a day that's never the same. But mine quite literally is working in the rail industry. I cover the whole rail network, so I could be sent to any location in the UK. For example, yesterday I was in Milton Keynes. Today I'm back home in the Northeast, traveling on trains, and that can be part of my day. Various meetings that could be around leadership, development. In my day job, I'm the technology lead for looking at new technologies. So I could be exploring some new technology or trying to get approval for implementing that weird and wacky idea to bring learning to life in a new way. So yeah, it's really varied, and I'm in a good space that I can create the day to how I want to. If I want a heavy meeting day, I can have that. And a non-negotiable for me is it's fitness for me. So running, gym, like fitness has always, or exercise, sport has always been a part of my life, and that's probably why it's transitioned across so easily. But I've got to have some kind of running, going to the gym at the end of work. Is it a stress relief? Maybe, but I also use that time as a thinking time as well. But it's always my non-negotiable of having some exercise time in the day.
It's interesting the number of people that talk about their non-negotiable routines being their thinking time. And I'm going to ask you what I ask everyone, which is, when you're doing that thinking, how do you capture ideas, thoughts? What's your process for that?
So it'll either, if it's in the gym, I'll have my phone near us, open the notes section, write a quick note, and then that'll be when I'm at a laptop or something, it'll be there. Obviously, out running, I don't type and run at the same time. I wouldn't recommend that to anybody anyway. But it's one of those where I find running is more headline thinking. So I'll just have a headline in my mind. And then when I get back, I'll stop running. It's notes out again, put the headline in. And that's almost the prompt to then spur on deeper thought. But when it's in the gym, I can sit, make a bit more detailed notes, and then flesh it out further.
And do you find that when you are running, that you are going through a process of closing stuff off for the day? So closing those thought loops that otherwise might wake you up in the middle of the night. Do you know what I mean by that?
I have a very weird nighttime routine. That's a whole different conversation.
Oh,
But
go on, you've got to share it now.
we'll start with the running. But yeah, running's sometimes where I've had a it's the problem solving time I look at it as. So as I'm running, I'm thinking through a problem or how do I overcome this situation, come up with a solution, and then it's there. Now the nighttime one that I gave you a preview for. So at night, again, my partner will have had a chat about something. Then the next morning, I'll be going, I've got an idea. This is the plan. This. And just, you've been asleep. What's happened? And I make a joke. I had a meeting in the night. And it's so sometimes, obviously, I don't know the psychology behind it. But yeah, sometimes at night, I can just work through things in my sleep and then I can come up with an idea. And we just joke saying, I've had a meeting in my mind at night.
I love that because when I don't know whether you're an NLP, neuro linguistic programming,
You know?
so you are naturally using a technique that we were trained to use, which was to set an intention before you go to bed so that your unconscious mind, which we know is the powerhouse of our thoughts, our behaviors, our emotions, and get it to work on a problem whilst we're asleep so that we have a solution in the morning. And to the extent where we used to use what we refer to as ideomotor signals, so yes or no signals, a movement of the body to indicate that the unconscious mind was in agreement with what we were requesting, but also to dictate the specific moment when we would get that solution. So, for example, we would say things like, I'd like you to work on this problem whilst I'm asleep, and I'd like you to give me the solution at 7 a.m. in the shower or thereabouts.
Yeah.
And it used to be really spooky, but not that I use it much these days, but you've just reminded me of it. So that's fascinating
Yeah.
that
It's just,
you've naturally been drawn to that as a process.
yeah, it's just now, I just say I've had a nighttime meeting and it's what happened in your meeting.
The other thing I loved about what you've just said is that you have got the flexibility to create your own day. That's great, isn't it? Is that a cultural thing?
Yeah, it's a little bit of cultural, and yeah, it's a little bit of, I'm fortunate I own my own diary calendar, and I'm not super rigid to it, but I do have a structure to it. Generally, I try to avoid 12 o'clock meetings so I can go and get some food.
Yeah.
Even simple things like that, or I tend not to have meetings too late in the day because I want to go for a run or go to the gym. So I set those boundaries. And fortunately, I'm in a position where it's okay. We've got that culture that you can have that freedom.
Yeah.
And sometimes I look at things a little bit morbid, but I look at it as if I don't have that meeting at this time or date, nobody's going to die.
Yes.
Why feel pressured to have a meeting at a certain time?
Yeah.
Probably a little bit extreme and morbid, but it gives us that context.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a great advert for Network Rail, isn't it? As well,
Yeah,
culturally.
yeah, and I fully appreciate not all of Network Rail will have that because you've got the frontline roles who are out on track and things need to be done out on track at a certain time.
Yeah.
So I fully appreciate how fortunate the role I do have gives us that element of flexibility to suit where I am, what I'm feeling, or even just to easily prioritize work.
Yeah. No, it's cool. So I'm hoping we're going to make a connection with your book with my next question. Because I was saying earlier that when I wrote my own book, it was to solve a particular challenge that I'd faced. So when it comes to your book, The Flip, what was the challenge that you faced that made you write it?
Really, it came into my conscious probably early 2025, late 2024, where I was looking at things and I kept on going, oh, there's an issue, there's a problem. And going into that cycle of doom and gloom, going, oh, there's always an issue, there's always a problem. And then I just started thinking about consciously going, but there's a learning opportunity. It might be because I'm in the learning and development space. I'm going, there's a learning opportunity here. And then there's an opportunity. So then that's when I started, no matter what the situation was, whatever it is, big or small, started going, I'm saying it's an issue, but what's the opportunity out here? Is it there an opportunity for me to learn? Is it a behavioral thing? Can I change something? And just started having that mind for it, that mindset of, yes, it's not great, but there's an opportunity to do something here, and the opportunity can be positive. It was really powerful. It sounds so simple talking it as there's an issue, think of it as an opportunity, but it really started changing my mindset. And it's not this look on the bright side of life kind of things, because sometimes the opportunities that I identified ended up being terrible ideas, but it took my thought processes in a different way. The stress, anxiety, all of that gets associated with when you're in that issue thinking, it melted away. So then mentally it's in a better place. And then, yeah, as it was more in my conscious, I'd started saying to my partner, Victoria, she used to come in from work and kind of say, I've got these issues. And I started saying, there's the opportunity there. And at first she was like, what do you mean opportunity? And we worked through it. And then she started applying it and she was going, this is actually quite useful. And yeah, she gave us that. She probably gave us the final push to write it because she was like, she was like, this is helpful. I've shared it with a few people at work. They found it useful. You should probably write a book to get it out there. And I didn't do it straight away, but I reflected and I was like, you know what? Why not?
Good for
Again,
you.
again, using that issue opportunity. It was the issue, like we touched on earlier. What would people think about it? Me writing a book. I'm not a big reader myself, so is that an issue? But then I was like, actually, that's a massive opportunity because writing a book as a non-reader, I'm probably going to write it quite succinct to the point so other non-readers can pick it up and go with it. And what I've done in the book as well, I've actually encouraged people to put it down and actually apply. So it's not a full theoretical thinking book. Really early on, the first challenge I set people is put the book down, go and make a cup of tea and grab some biscuits. So
Yeah.
it's just that if you're not a big reader, getting told to go away, come back, it's small chunks. And through kind of this bringing it into the conscious, that's when I looked back at my career and you could argue life. And it's been in the subconscious that the issue, I've always tried to make an opportunity out of whatever it is. And it's only recently I've brought it into the conscious.
Yeah. So what inspired that process?
I think it was one of those where I was just getting, I'm generally like an optimist, quite positive about things. And I was getting into the issue thinking, that more negative spiral. And it was, this isn't me. And what can I do to change that? So it was look at the opportunities. Opportunities for me is a positive. It gets like the excitement, the motivation. So it brings us back to my norm. So it was, again, just that really simple mindset shift. And it didn't happen overnight. It took kind of small steps along the way to build it. So yeah, that was kind of that main motivation of identifying that I can see this isn't me. How do I come back to the me that I'm happy with? And yeah, small steps led the way and built it up. And then it was like, yeah, it was probably just before Christmas time when I was really like starting to write chapters. And I was like, I've been doing this for years. I've just never actually consciously thought about it.
That's great. And so, can you give us an example of one of your negative thinking spirals so that we can attach?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll use the book as the example.
Yeah.
So I'd got this consciously in my head, but turned the issue into an opportunity, had the feedback to write a book. And the issue wasn't writing a book. I was comfortable. I was like, I can type some words onto a page. Whether they make sense or not to people, that's a different question, but I can write a bit. The issue was actually, what will people think about this? Is that, will they go, oh, he's being big headed, look at him writing a book?
Can you do a little thing to help me out? And that's to simply hit subscribe or the follow button now, wherever it is that you're listening. So that's maybe on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple, because that will help the podcast get found by other people. And that then enables us to keep going because we continue to keep growing. What would be 5-star amazing though is if you could also leave a review. I really appreciate it. Thanks for your support.
Or will they go, I don't want to listen to him? And yeah, I could really spiral into that of going lower the self-worth, going, no, I'm just gonna wallow and go, I'm not worth it. And then I thought actually the opportunity, like we touched on, I'm not a big reader, so if I could write a book that a non-reader can pick up and go, actually, I've read a book, look at me, I've done something that's not me. I was like, that's a really great opportunity. And then reflecting onto the principles, turn an issue into opportunity, I was like, that can be really useful to people. So it was almost like, why not? So yes, the fear, if you like, was the issue. But then I thought, worst that can happen, nobody reads it. I've spent some time writing a book, but then I can say I've wrote a book, so that's an opportunity. Then the wider opportunity is I could be helping other people who could be in a similar situation and looking into that issue, thinking and going, I can't see a way out. Using the 5 principles of the book, firstly, spotting the issue, which can be hard. It sounds really simple. Can you spot an issue? But it's really identifying the cause of that issue, what's underneath the headline, then reframing it.
So
So
first of all, talk me through how you spot an issue. What are the clues and the signs? How would I know that I've got an issue, for example?
for me, it's more that it's the feeling, it's the emotion. So
Yeah.
we'll use a really simple example. You're waiting for a bus, you're at the bus stop waiting for a bus, and it hasn't turned up. Straight away, you'll have an element of frustration, maybe anger. It hasn't turned up on time, that's impacting your day. But so the issue isn't necessarily the bus being late, that's a trigger. The issue is the frustration, anger that's building up inside. Now, that could be because you had things to do on the bus. But the opportunity could be it's still the same amount of time. You can just do it whilst waiting for the bus to turn up. And then when you're on the bus, you could be enjoying the scenery. Let's say we're in the countryside somewhere. So it could be as simple as that. It's mostly that emotional trigger that kind of really gets into it's an issue, and it's remembering the issues aren't necessarily spread. It can just be an issue to yourself. It doesn't mean it's an issue to somebody else.
Yeah. So step 1 is spot the issue. What's step 2? Did you say reframe?
Yeah, it's reframing it. So that's when you start looking at it and going, I've spotted the issue. Now it's reframing that into what can be the possible opportunities. And that leads into step 3, which is mapping the opportunities. And again, I'm certainly not expecting people to look at an issue and then go for the big home run opportunity, all firework display. It could just be one small thing. And by small, it could be have a conversation with somebody. So if the issue was you raised an idea at a meeting and somebody challenged you, again, you could have spent hours on that, building that idea up, and you feel shot down, a bit deflated that someone's challenged you. Where you could map that opportunity and go, you know what, I'm going to ask some questions to understand, is it the way I've presented it, or is it they haven't understood it? Is there something missing? So that's when you map the opportunity and go with, you pick the opportunity because there could be several there. You pick with the one, but you lead with intention. It's not the, I'll give it a go and see what happens. It's, I really need to be both feet in, go for it.
And just before we move on to any further steps, what would be an example of a reframe? I know in coaching, I know what a reframe would be, but what is it for you by definition of your book or process?
Reframing is where you've taken your issue
Yeah.
And it's almost putting it through that, it's through the non-emotional, non-biased filter.
Yeah.
So it's stating it as a fact. It is giving it that kind of, this is the situation that's happening right now. It's not, I am annoyed due to the bus. It's, the issue that I'm having is there is a bus left. That's it. We've taken the emotion out. It's what facts do we know about this situation?
Yeah.
So be it. So it's reframing it to what we have, what we know, what we have as the fact. And then from there, that's when you can start mapping the opportunities from there.
Yeah. And so then what happens after you've mapped the opportunity?
This is the big and bold step. It's where you act on it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's all very well thinking about it and going, I've got an issue, I've reframed it, I've spotted the opportunities, but the opportunities will never get anywhere if you just sit there and have them in your head going, this is nice. So it's acting. And like I said, it's acting with intention. So if you're going to do whichever opportunity, it's you commit both feet in, go for it. And it's not necessarily hitting the big home run. It could just be a small step, asking a question, having a conversation with somebody. That could be a small step, but you've taken that opportunity forward and that can lead to something else. And then the final step is the reflection on that journey. What went well, what didn't go well. Because again, like I said, this book isn't a total optimist, things look on the bright side of life. It is about reality. And sometimes these opportunities that you try, they don't succeed. And that's where the power of reflection comes in, because you're like, I've tried it, it didn't work, but I'll learn for next time.
It's a real, and we'll be used to these sort of terms, won't we, as L&D professionals, but it's a proper growth mindset model, isn't it? In that I was just talking to a client earlier about sometimes as leaders, we can give the impression that we are strong, we have all the answers, we are perfect, we are the provider of solutions. And yet, one of the challenges with that is that if we are not vulnerable with our teams, as in if we're trying to professing to be perfect all the time, it can be very difficult for team members to then make mistakes around you. So we were talking about that and how a growth mindset is really useful. And I was using the analogy from Black Box Thinking. It's one I've used loads,
Yeah.
which is a great book, but I'm also living it at the moment. So it's not an analogy, it's actually science. They studied people that had a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And they were talking about how people who were doing pottery and were perfecting, they spent the whole time perfecting, trying not to make mistakes, trying not to learn. They weren't learning from what it was that they're doing, versus people that would have a go, reflect on what went well, what didn't go well, just like you're suggesting, and then had another go. They were the ones that performed better.
Yeah, and it's what I've said to people, what I've put as the 5 principles. It's nothing revolutionary, but it's framing it in that simple way of, again, if you're in that issues thinking, you just want clarity. You don't want
Yeah.
to have a whole load of blurb thrown at you. It's just really simple, straightforward, and that's your route to clarity.
What does work think about your book? Have you shared it with them?
Yeah, they've been massively supportive of it, and interestingly, shared it with a few people. That what's the title? Told them, and they went, "Yeah, that's you." So I was like, "All right, I didn't know I was writing a book. Whether if you had to come up with a title, that's the title for us." So
Yeah.
yeah, they've been really supportive. Though some people surprised. Like I said, I'm not a big reader, so they've probably went, "Not a big reader writing a book doesn't exactly add up." And yeah, they've been really supportive, really interested with it to go by and try it. And it was like, why not? Like we've said, what's the worst that can happen? Nobody reads it, but I can say I've spent time. I've actually went through a process of writing a book and publishing it. So it's been a massive learning experience, and they've been massively supportive, curious, interested, all of that.
That's great. And have you found your model or system finding its way into some of your L&D sessions or not?
Subtly, subtly. I'm not there in the corner of the room just holding my book up,
Yeah.
going, do you know what we've just talked about? You can buy it here. I haven't done that yet. Just little bits and pieces that I've been bringing it in, even just a simple phrase of, what's the opportunity here?
Yeah. And what kind of results has this process delivered for you personally? What's an example of success
Um,
for you?
I could probably make a strong case for my career. So when I started in the rail industry, I was at Newcastle. The accent might give it away. But I got to a point where it was almost like the fork in the road. And it was stay in the, because I'd reached a level and there was like no natural progression unless somebody left and no one was leaving. So it was, do I stay and wait? Or I had a phone call from a colleague and he said, would you be interested in a job that you have to go to Scotland every 2 weeks? Now, being from near Newcastle, Scotland's an hour and a half on the train. And I was like, I could do that. You could say potential issue. It was my first job where it was going to be consistent work away from home, overnight stays, all of that kind of stuff. But it was the opportunity to grow, learn a different part of the business, and I took it. Haven't looked back. Yeah, so I've now covered Scotland, like the East Coast main line, so from Berwick down to London, the southern area, and then I've gone into national roles. So as I've just briefly went through, I've bounced around. I've met loads of great people through my knowledge. So yeah, there was the issue of what do I do in my career, but then I had this opportunity. I went for it, and I'd like to say it's worked out quite well.
Good for
Yes.
you. And it's interesting as well that I notice a trend when I'm speaking to guests. And one of the trends is that you all seem to say yes to things when opportunities are presented. And it links quite nicely actually with our last guest, who was Selma Delitzsch. She's the operations partner at PKF Smith Cooper. And she was very similar to you in that she just grabbed opportunities and went for it. She said it wasn't necessarily always on the plan, but if somebody offered something, then she would go for it. And her question for you, because we have a tradition on the podcast, every guest leaves a question for a future guest. And her question to you was, how do you think your communication style has evolved over time? And why have you felt the need to adapt your communication style?
So it's definitely changed over time. I think as I've been promoted and become more senior, and I was almost like there's a certain way to communicate, kind of formal emails, all of that tone. And I received some interesting feedback where it was my manager at the time went, can you be more fluffy with your team? And I said, fluffy, it's not really my style.
Fancy a chat? Or maybe you're interested in the Optimized Leader Program Next Level. You can book a free 15-minute call by scanning the QR code on screen or see the link in my show notes.
But what they meant was I can get very much onto a meeting. Hello, let's get into the work. And it's not that I don't care about the people, but it was, can you show it? And I was like, I can show it, but fluffiness, we might not have to be fluffy. And it's something that's changed over time now. So even something simple, I sent an email to a colleague last week. I was putting emojis in it and stuff like that. And it's that's showing that you're human and you can have very serious senior conversations, but it's showing you that human side. And that's what I've realized. And I've noticed I get so much more better engagement. And because it's, oh, wait, an email that traditionally might have come across as senior, formal, oh, I best be careful what I'm saying. I'll put an emoji and I'll say a bit of a joke, make it a bit informal. And suddenly you get either a quicker response or it feels like a more relaxed response.
So What question would you like to leave for the next guest?
I've been thinking about it, and I thought we've got to have something related to the book, turning an issue into an opportunity. So I think it's going to be, where's what's been your biggest opportunity that came from an issue?
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's very thought-provoking.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. When you told us that, I was like, I've got to make it relevant about the book. Yeah.
And where can people get your book, by the way?
The book is available on Amazon, hardback, paperback, Kindle. You can go to any bookshop in the world and get it ordered.
I was impressed that it's in hardback.
Yeah, that's to be fair. When I was like, should I do it? And I was like, yeah, do it. That's been the most popular.
What was your process for publishing as well, and your cover and your writing routine?
So yeah, so we'll start with the writing, and I know there is some people who go, I write the book, then come up with the title. I did it the other way. I had the title, I had the idea, and I had issue into opportunity. And I was like, I need something a bit catchy. And I was like, what is it? I'm turning it, I'm flipping it. And I was like, the flip. Then it was just like, the flip sounds easy to catchy. So I had that. Then I was like, the place to start is the origin. Where did I come up with this? So the backstory of how I came up with it, and went through all of that. And then I just started building chapter by chapter, just going as a natural flow. So I've got the origin, you know what it is. Then I need to start building that framework, the 5 steps, bringing that to life. And then I wanted to make it relatable, so it's not just theory, to actually show that people, organizations, everybody has used it throughout time. So it's just building it through there. And once I had it in a pretty good state, I thought I'll start with the fun stuff, the design stuff, the powers of AI. I was like, this is benefit because I'm not a designer by any stretch of the imagination, unless you want the front cover to be stick people, which I thought it might be unique, but probably not. And yeah, so I had a bit of text to image, and I knew what I wanted it to look like. So it was that getting the text to match. And yeah, so I got all that, applied the text onto it. And then it was the fun of the sizes. So Amazon has a set size. Firstly, it was deciding what size of book do I want? Do I want it massive Guinness Book of Records kind of size, or something more portable, let's say? So I picked that size, and then yeah, it was matching the sizes. I learned that Amazon has a slightly different sizing tool to Ingram, so publishing in the bookshops. So I had to do 2 different templates and matching it all up. Then
Wow.
it was optional. I got a few test copies sent. It was just to make sure that the images were lining up, because it's all very well how it looks on a screen. I wanted to hold it and go, yes, it meets my standards. And because again, I'd committed a lot of time to it, so I wanted it to do it justice. I didn't want the image to be that kind of 5-minute job. Then yeah, I went to the decision of publish, self-publish, what to do. So I did send it to a few publishers, and they said it'll take 12 weeks minimum to hear back. And me being impatient, I went, I'm not waiting 12 weeks. I'll do it now. Again, going with the what's the worst that can happen. So I did it myself. So self-published it, the whole everything. But that was a really good learning journey. So I've literally been through every step of bringing a book to life. And then, yeah, went live, and it was that it was that weird moment of, oh, I've got a book now that's out in the world. And I think the weird bit was I was doing something, and I ended up on a book site that covers all the books, and it was there. It wasn't on Amazon, it was just there. And I was like, oh, it's there.
It's
And
amazing.
yeah, so, and then, yeah, because yeah, like I've said, worst that can happen was no one bought. So I wasn't checking kind of the sales straight away. I wasn't refreshing every 5 minutes, because I was like, it's out there. If people want to get it, they'll get it. I'm not going to be that car salesman haggling for it all. And yeah, checked a few days later, and there was copies sold. It said, you've made sales. It's sold in multiple countries now. So I was like, whoa, this is better than expected.
Yeah, that's
Um,
incredible.
and then, yeah, like I said, I'm midway through book two, and it's applying the learning from everything that I've done. You could say I've done the five principles. The issue we've talked about, the fear, reframed it for helping people, mapped it into the opportunity, let's do it. I've actually done it. Reflecting back, yeah, there were some bits that I could have made quicker or things I wouldn't do with the text format or whatever it is. So I'm building that into book two. So yeah, it's been a massive learning process. So book two should be a smoother process, I'm hoping.
Yeah, I did, by the way, audience, ask Steve about what the next book's about, but he wouldn't tell me, so
Yes,
that's why I'm asking
I've purposely
that.
kept it to book two.
Yeah.
They'll have to.
Watch your space, eh?
I'm planning on mid to late summer. I'm probably going to announce it, so that'll be all over LinkedIn and stuff.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting. Good on you.
No, thank
So,
you.
to bring things to a close and thinking either about your career or life, what three actionable tips can you recommend to listeners?
For me, I think if they're ever in that situation of should I do it, should I not, I would always go with it. What's the worst that can happen? If it's not, if it's not you're going to die or you're going to kill somebody, then why not give it a go? And the learning that you can get from that could be massive. Success or failure, you're learning something. So, yeah, that's my big actionable one. The why not. Two, again, relating it to the book, small intentional steps compound. So, like we've said, when it's the opportunity, you don't need to go for the big home run. Small intentional steps, they build, they compound. And if you can do something really small this week, do it. Something else small next week, that's built up. You've done two small things, but you're heading in a different direction. I use the 1% challenge in the book. So spend 1% of your time in the week. I can't remember that off the top of my head, but we're talking minutes. If you can give that minute, a few minutes in a whole week, is to do something positive. Everyone's got that time, so let's do it. And the third one, probably something that when I started in the railway career, my be mentor told us, and I've always applied it, is to be curious, ask questions, and be curious, because just because you don't know doesn't mean you're by yourself. That could be the one question that everybody in the room's thinking, but the two, they don't want to ask it, the fear of stupid. But be curious, because what's the worst that can happen? You're going to get talked to for 5 hours with someone explaining it. I think that's just being curious is something that everybody can do, and it's really simple. Whether it's researching on the internet or asking a question to a person, everybody's got the capability to do it. So I think, in summary, my three are relatively small in action, but to do them can be a big step. Sounds like that. Was it one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind kind of?
Yeah, yeah. But it's often those small steps that deliver the big change, isn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly.
And it's the old analogy of don't try and eat the whole elephant at once. You've got to break it down into bite-sized pieces. But
Yeah,
before you know it, we are eating the elephant, aren't we?
yeah.
And you have had your book published and been promoted and had a successful career. It's been a real delight talking to you, Steve, because you live and breathe the growth mindset principles, you live and breathe your own system, you're congruent with your own system. And yeah, I've just really enjoyed the conversation. I know that people will find what you said really useful. And I love the fact it's so practical as well. You're a real pragmatist.
Well, thank you for having us on.
No, pleasure. Before we sign off, I'd like to invite you to my quick reflective practice called Pause, Reflect, Act. As your leadership coach, I'm here to help you translate today's insights into personal growth and your next steps. Answer the prompts that follow in your journal or notes. Alternatively, you can access my complimentary journal and self-coaching tool in the show notes or scan the QR code you can see on screen now. So, if you've been listening to Steve Pendleton's episode this week, here are 3 reflective questions you can ask yourself either in a journal or just to sit with a cuppa. So, number 1, the flip in action. Think of a current challenge or frustration you're facing. What is the actual issue beneath the surface emotion, stripped of bias and any feeling? And if you were to look at it purely as a fact, what opportunities might be hiding within it? Question number 2, your subconscious meeting room. Steve described how his mind solves problems overnight. Nighttime meetings, he referred to them as. When do you do your best thinking? And are you intentionally creating the conditions for that? What problem could you set your unconscious mind to work on overnight? And I talk a little bit more in the episode about how you can actually do that. Number 3, the why not test. Steve's guiding question is, what's the worst that can happen? We absolutely love that question in the coaching community. Is there something you've been holding back on? Maybe writing a book, a project, having a conversation with someone. And what would you do if failure was simply a learning outcome? If you'd like to be notified when the next episode drops, remember to subscribe. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone who might benefit. Finally, if any of these topics have sparked your interest and you'd like to work with me, you can apply for a free discovery call at estelleread.com. Let's see if we're a good fit. You'll also find plenty of free resources there. I'm Estelle Read, executive coach, speaker and best-selling author, and this has been the Optimising Leader Brilliance podcast. Thanks for listening. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered professional advice. Please consult with a qualified professional for any specific advice related to your situation.